So Fallout 3 with only the 32 caliber pistol was an overly long and tedious experience. Also big thank you to SackGuy141 for informing me that I really should have been calling it a 32 caliber instead of a .32, so now I know for next time. Anyway, for this week I wanted to switch games again and give you guys one that I hope you'll really enjoy, seeing how the last Arkham video was by far the best performing video on the channel. So for this week I want to find out, can you beat Arkham City without taking any damage? So assuming you all saw the Asylum video, you'll remember I said that I was confident that City would be easier since the stealth sections in Asylum were so limited you never had many options to deal with those situations, whereas in City they give you a lot more creative freedom in how you approach stealth. So I'm hoping that there won't be as many deaths in the stealth sections this time. As for the rules, they're the exact same as last time. If I take damage of any kind, I have to load back to a previous checkpoint. I have to do it this way because as far as I'm aware there's no way to limit your health to just one hit point, unlike you can in Skyrim by using console commands. And with that, let's get started. First things first, we select the worm looking Batman as our save, just like before, and this time I decided to play the game on normal rather than easy, just because, well, these challenges aren't supposed to be simple after all. Well, we start the game up and I have to say Batman is certainly looking different. So yeah, that is one small difference that started with Arkham City, and that is that you do occasionally play as other members of the Bat family and sometimes Catwoman. She really is just a faster Batman with less gadgets, so I don't mind her when in combat. It's how she breaks up the flow of the story that bothers me, but more on that later. Regardless, this is only the tutorial fight, so it doesn't pose a threat in the slightest. Afterwards we get control of Bruce Wayne, not Batman, they are clearly two different people. You have to counter this first guard so you can steal his SIM card, and as a reward I get a nice close-up look at the TV. Now, while you could make an argument that this is technically me taking damage, this doesn't actually take away any of my health, so I'd say it doesn't count. I counter all the thugs, save Jack, get hit by a pipe, and then get stepped on by the Penguin. Okay, we're off to a good start. Thankfully though, things start going our way rather quickly when we snap his wrist like a chicken bone and then get him in the back of the head while he tries to run away. This is another incredibly easy fight however, as it is technically the first fight in the game if you don't have the Catwoman DLC forced upon you. With some simple parkour, we're able to get our new suit and use the SIM card from earlier so we can figure out where the plot is and get this show on the road. I do make a quick stop to beat up some passers-by just because I enjoy the combat in this game too much. When I get to the courthouse, I tried something Batman never has before by going in the front door, but of course that never works. I thought taking out Two-Face's men might be difficult, but considering that about 90% of them leave, it's no real trouble. I did try jumping around and evading to see if I could dodge in time when Two-Face fired, but that didn't work.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
In all seriousness, it doesn't inflict any damage, so we are fine. Also, I feel like this has been said before, but how did Two-Face's hands get tied here? We just grappled him by his legs, and as soon as it cuts to Batman, his hands are already bound. Odd. Using our skeleton vision, we're able to figure out rather quickly where the Joker is, or maybe it's because I've played through this game at least 10 times in the past and have its map etched into the very core of my brain by this point, who can say. Next, we have a rematch with Harley Quinn after beating her in the Asylum, and it's about as much of a boss battle as it was last time. This is also the first stealth section, meaning it's more just teaching you the new stealth options you have when compared to Arkham Asylum. Most important of which is the smoke bomb, which I imagine will let me survive if I get spotted, unlike in Asylum. I quickly deal with the guards, field any type of bomb disposal when I go upstairs, and then begin making my way towards the steel mill to confront the Joker. Well, since Bruce Wayne is one part man, one part bat, and one part Santa Claus, that's why Arkham Origins is set during Christmas Eve, the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. We make our way into the steel mill by way of the chimney and make some pretty questionable jumps that somehow don't end with me getting burnt to a crisp. When sneaking around underneath the Joker's men, I take damage for the first time when I accidentally walk into some steam. Well, that was a rather anticlimactic way to get hurt for the first time. Well, these things tend to usually snowball from here on. I load back and this time remember to actually turn off the vents and go to fight the Joker's henchmen. Well, turns out I might be slightly blind as I somehow did not see this box hurtling towards Batman and get it broken over my head, resulting in, of course, another reset. Third time's a charm and I'm able to get through by making sure that anyone who even so much as thinks about picking up a box gets punched in the jaw. Next, I have to make a small detour to save a doctor being held inside another part of the steel mill. It's the first real stealth section outside the tutorial one from earlier. It's easy enough, but I do end up getting shot because the guards somehow hit me from this angle. But thankfully it only takes me 2 minutes to get back to this point, and instead of trying to be fancy and take him down from above, I just hit him with a batarang and take him down that way. Now we get access to the remote electrical charge, or in other words, it's a gun that shoots lightning. You can fire it pretty quickly too, it's almost like playing a third-person shooter Arkham game. But who would want that? That sounds like an absolutely awful idea in my opinion. All it's really used for though is opening specific doors, and in this one case, removing them entirely. This is also where we encounter our first mini-boss fight of the game with Mr. Hammer. I had the idea of being smart for once and tried to smoke bomb him, but all that did was make him swing wildly and kill me. Second time round, I found out that if you're mid-counter and he goes to attack you, you are in fact doomed! As unlike if a normal enemy attacks you, you can't just counter him, so again, another reset. And then the third time, I got kicked because I wasn't paying attention. Remember how I said after the first death things begin to snowball? Well, you're seeing it now. Thankfully on the fourth attempt I put down some explosive gel to help knock away some of the other thugs, and took them out while keeping him stunned with the electrical charge. He is actually pretty simple to deal with when he's by himself, as he is so slow you can just keep evading over his head, no problem. When we get upstairs we find out the Joker is dead, but not really, and then we get knocked out by Harley. Aww. I'm sure a smarter person can make a joke about the irony of Batman being knocked out with a bat, but I am not that person. Sadly, this forces us into the next Catwoman section. I have no problems with their gameplay, it's how the story kind of just stops during these segments, and it really hurts what is otherwise a good pace to the story. Regardless, the section is pretty short, we just have to go get some catnip from Catwoman's apartment and then head over to Poison Ivy!
I told you to go to your cell.
Thankfully for my mental stability, her boss fight is just a few waves of thugs over a few floors, and even when you get to Ivy, while she still has those annoying orbs from the first game, their homing abilities have been drastically lowered, making them pretty simple to avoid. Finally, we get back to the story and we need to head over to Mr. Freeze's place to find a cure for Joker and Batman's disease. There is a small stealth moment outside that results in me getting gunned down, when, let's be real here, these two thugs should have acted like a shield. Second time, however, I am able to take them all out before they even realise, due to the fact I was able to get a double takedown unlike last time. Once inside Freeze's hideout, I have to deal with more thugs, but now they have the collars, just like in the first game, that alert the others when you take one of them out. That being said, once you're down to just one thug, he surrenders, making this a little easier than it would have been normally. Now, since Mr. Ice Pop isn't here, we need to make our way to the museum, but of course, when we get there, the museum is locked down and we cannot get inside until we take out 3 different jammers. I did get hit once during the first jammer, but that was due to me being careless, so next time went by with no problems. That being said, however, Jammer 2 was an absolute nightmare for me, and I'm honestly not sure why. It's just a somewhat ordinary stealth section, a couple of thugs with guns and no special equipment, but it just seemed that every time I got them down to one man, I would just get blasted out of nowhere. I died here 7 times before I was finally able to press on to the underground jammer, which bumps the overall deaths up to 15 already. Finally, I was able to get past it, and then almost immediately after got incredibly unlucky when scaling the building and climbed up right in front of a thug and got shot for it immediately. Thankfully for me, I got a checkpoint right after taking out the second jammer, so I don't have to deal with that situation again. I assumed that getting to the third jammer would be more difficult as it is underground, but while there are guards outside the entrance to the subway, none of them were actually standing in front of the entrance, so I just kinda casually walked on in. There is one very small encounter with some thugs that I'm guessing is only here because they are foreshadowing the next boss fight. Truth be told, I only died once in the next stealth section with the jammer, and it's because this happened.
Listen, step up and give it your best shot.
Well, next attempt when the game actually decides to work for me, I'm able to easily deal with everyone, and with a few more wires added to Batman's ever-growing collection, we can now make our way into the museum and confront the Penguin. I try to be clever and skip this beatdown tutorial on this thug with a takedown, but the game said no. I do manage to save this man who claims he's an undercover cop, but just to be sure, we have to make sure that he knows Gordon's secret code word.
The code. Now.
It's
Weed.
He said to tell you the code is
Weed.
You're safe, officer.
Now is time for the Gladiator pit fight, which is possibly the biggest fight in the game with how many enemies it throws at you at once. I was initially terrified that I would be stuck here for a long time, but as it turns out, I somehow managed to beat this on my very first attempt. The best strategy I came up with was to get the special combo takedown and then just hold on to it in case I was in a situation where I thought I was going to get hit, and then I could use it as the enemies cannot attack you while you're doing it, plus it sort of locks onto an enemy, and in some cases can be handy to create some distance between you and a large group. As for the second phase when the Titan drops in, I just made sure to hit as many thugs as possible when I was able to ride the Titan, and then take out all the thugs when I was off the Titan, so that they wouldn't get in the way and get a quick hit in. And with that, all that was left was to triple stun the Titan, and with a few hits he's knocked out and the fight is over. Pressing on into the next room, Batman's plot armor begins to show as we clearly witness the ice gun that Penguin is using immediately frees this entire undercover cop, yet when shot at Batman, it of course only freezes his hand and he is easily able to break free. With that in mind, we free the copsicles, not my joke, I stole it from Penguin, and make our way to free the other officers being held hostage in the next room over. I use my old tactic from Asylum of placing explosives on the first person I choke out, and then use that to knock down 3 guards, I also then cover myself with a smoke bomb to make sure the other two thugs can't see what I'm doing, and then use the backhaul to disarm them both and end up clearing the room in less than 2 minutes. Well, I'll admit, that was unexpected, so hopefully I can keep this pace going into the next room. Yeah, so he gets me almost immediately, resulting in another death. He's able to best me a few more times before I get a run where I make the smart idea to get rid of the explosive casters in the room so the normal thugs can't use them. As well as using the evade more so than the counter so he doesn't get a chance to hit me while I'm dealing with the others. Also, pretty on the nose for Rocksteady to give the only two Russians in the game a hammer and sickle as weapons, don't you think? Now thankfully we can go deal with Penguin. Even though it's as simple as holding down a single button, it is still oddly satisfying to lay the smackdown on him after he's been giving us the runaround for the past hour. Now we have the main event however, and the first proper boss battle of the game with Solomon Grundy. And it is a doozy. The first phase is pretty straightforward as his attacks are fairly telegraphed and easy to dodge while you blow up the generators on the ground around him. The second phase however also adds these little maggot bug enemies into the mix which could easily sneak up on you if you're not paying attention, which happened to me a few times to be honest. Thankfully for me though, just like the Ivy fight in the first game, you get a checkpoint after each phase of the fight, so I at least don't have to start from scratch every time I take damage, and boy did I take damage a lot. Be it from the bugs, jumping into his swinging balls, or just accidentally standing on the ground that is clearly on fire. After a lot of struggling, I did manage to beat the phase, and then when I went to finish him off, I somehow forgot about this part where he picks you up and shocks you during a sort of quick time event cutscene. Now, I have no idea if this actually took away my health, as while it did flash, it also didn't look like it was draining at all. But I eventually decided that because the screen is doing the thing where it flickers black a little bit, which, by the way, it only does when you take damage, I decided to count it as such, and since there is absolutely no way to avoid this, I can say that no, it is not possible to beat Arkham City without taking any damage. That said, I still want to continue on and try to beat the rest of the game without taking damage where possible. I'll also put this up as a death, of course. Anyway, at the beginning of the third phase, I roll straight into a blast of electricity. Well, this is a great start. Thankfully, this part of the boss fight is much easier as Grundy is stuck and only has one AoE attack that's easy to dodge once you get used to it. So after blowing up the same generators for a second time, Batman is able to finish off Grundy.
Batman wins. Fatality.
Now we just have to get rid of Penguin again, which takes less than 20 seconds. Or it would have if I was competent at the game, which I am not. Now, with this little side journey out of the way, we can return to Freeze to work on a cure. Except that he needs a specific enzyme that's been bonded to human DNA, thus sending us back off to gather ingredients for this cure-all diseases potion he's been working on. Lucky for us, a random ninja was in a box nearby and will now conveniently lead Batman to exactly where he needs to go. Nothing too exciting happens while following the assassin, other than a few more deaths here and there due to me not noticing people with guns and me launching this thug to the freaking moon. I do meet up with Robin, just to tell him that he smells and that he should leave me alone, which he does, so at least he listens. Continuing on with following the ninjas, we make our way into the sewers, which I'm sure makes Batman ecstatic. There are a few basic fights at the beginning of the sewers, but they aren't too bad seeing how upgraded I am by this point in the game. Needless to say, things are going well. That is until Batman starts having heart palpitations and my health starts going down. Well, it doesn't actually decrease per se, so much as it lowers your overall maximum health. But regardless, it is still unavoidable damage in my eyes, so it's another death and another reminder that Rocksteady hates me. In the very next room, my brain must have just melted or something, as for the life of me, I just could not beat these thugs. I ended up resetting here 4 times before I was finally smart enough to use a smoke bomb to take out 2 of the thugs with guns first, and then deal with the others with a multi-ground takedown. The next areas where they introduce the thugs with jammers mean I can't fully use my detective vision until they're dealt with. Lucky for me, I also got the upgrade at this point that allows me to disable 2 thugs' guns, making things go at the very least a little bit smoother compared to some of the earlier stealth areas. Now we can make our way to the ninja hideout, and yeah, of course, more force damage. That's just peachy. Fighting the ninjas is a joke, especially considering I have the upgrade for the blade dodge, which is an instant knockout if I avoid them just right. I'm going to just breeze past this next segment as it's just running around scanning robots with a few small fights in between. And hey, would you look at that, we get inside and yep, more force damage. Lucky for us, we are safe from being skewered thanks to Talia. She does slap us, this does not count as damage, the only thing that's hurt here is Batman's pride. Now it's time for the next boss fight, this time with Ra's al Ghul. But first, some basic Arkham cape gliding. I say basic, but I did crash into objects and die twice here before actually getting to Ra's, so let that speak for my skills. The actual fight is nothing too difficult. You just need to make sure to time your dodges right when he sends out his ground blades and shurikens, which is easy enough to get the timing down on after a few tries. And from there, just keep blasting him non-stop with the electric gun. I am aware you're meant to fire it at the gaps in his shield of Sandmen, but I find that just spamming the quickfire button works just as well, if not better. Now that we have the blood sample from Raish, it's as simple as making our way back to Mr. Freeze and hopefully avoid any more instances where we are forced to take damage. While trying to leave the sewers and subway tunnels, I do get shot by a thug and have to reset, but I'm easily able to deal with him next time. I also absolutely destroy this group of enemies when they first introduce the shield thugs, thanks to the fact I have the takedown that lets me destroy weapons now. Once we're at the surface, the story is briefly sidetracked again while I have to go save the mayor now that he's been arrested. The law in Batman's universe is strange, which actually I guess that is true in two ways for this game, isn't it? With that out of the way, we can make our way back to Freeze, and oh, would you look at that, he turns on us. Perhaps trusting one of your villains to make a cure to save your life was not such a good idea, now was it? In all seriousness, this is by far the best boss fight in the game, as it tests you in so many ways and forces you to get creative with how you deal with Freeze, seeing how he adapts over the course of the fight. That being said, it's not really difficult and I do beat him on my first attempt. And since we knock some sense into this popsicle, he gives us ice grenades to play with, which are really good for taking down thugs. Speaking of thugs, now the sniper versions are introduced and we have to deal with them while trying to save Vicky Vale, which is really simple all things considered. What isn't simple, however, is getting to the steel mill afterwards without being hit, as it is now surrounded by snipers that you need to take out, otherwise they will shoot you down, and if I take damage here, I have to go back to just after I rescued Vale, I have to make the whole trip over to the steel mill again. To save on time, just know that I died on my way over here 4 times, I had to fly all the way back from Vicky 4 times as well. But you know what? This doesn't even begin to compare to what's about to go down inside the steel mill. Inside, I engage in some rather exhilarating rowboat-esque sections with the ice grenades, and then another small encounter with some thugs that got the best of me more times than I care to admit. This is immediately followed by more wonderful ice riding, and it's well, it's certainly part of the game, isn't it? Thankfully, it's followed by another new thug in the stealth section who can use mines, and if you know anything about me, it's that I am great at disposing with mines. That said, I can't deflect the bullets and die. The next room is really odd, it's just one guy in it with a sniper and loads of mines, but he doesn't keep watch on the only entrance, so you can effortlessly just walk up to him and take him out. I also get to gag Harley, which is something half the fanbase probably wants to do, for better or worse. And now here we are, the final fight in the steel mill, and this may actually have taken a few years off of my life of how much stress this caused me. It was just so difficult. It throws so much at you with normal thugs, blade thugs, shield thugs, Mr. Hammer even gets thrown in, as well as a freaking titan in the second half. And to top it all off, you have the Joker here from the start of the fight, who can't be permanently knocked out until everyone else is, and he can pick up weapons just like all the others, making him just as, if not more dangerous. And that's not all. The whole time this is happening, there are 2 roller coaster trains that are coming back and forward across 2 different paths, meaning if you're not careful, you'll be in the middle of either a counter or a takedown when they are coming, and you'll be forced to be hit because you won't be able to get out of the way fast enough. The only saving grace of this fight is that once the Titan comes in, if you can manage to mount him, you're invulnerable until he throws you off, so I made rushing the Titan as soon as he came in a priority. In the end, I was at this fight for about 30 minutes, which may not seem like long, but it felt like an eternity at the time. And since you're all probably wondering, I died a total of 22 times here, bringing the total up to 86, meaning I have now officially died more in City than I did in Asylum. Yay! Well, after that nightmare, things don't get much better, as once again we are forced to play as Catwoman. This is, thankfully, the last time, and in fairness is nowhere near as difficult as what I just went through. It's just a few fights, but more importantly, it's the first real stealth section with Catwoman. Kind of weird that it's left until this late in the game, but whatever I guess. At the end of Catwoman's little side story, you're given the choice to leave with the money or save Batman. Now, normally I would have run off with the money to end the game earlier, but it just rewinds you to this point if you do. So, me not wanting to waste your time or mine, and because at the time of capturing this footage it was around 1 in the morning and I just wanted it all to end, I just ignored the prospect of leaving Batman to die and instead went to save him. Now, with only about an hour left of the game, we finally get to witness what Protocol 10 actually is, which is just Strange deciding he doesn't want to be a prison warden anymore and that he's going to kill all the prisoners with missile strikes, which, if we're all going to be honest with ourselves, isn't actually a bad idea. Obviously though, we can't let that happen, so I spend a few minutes getting the right codes from the helicopters that will allow me to get into the facility where Strange currently is. I also punch a guard with a stun stick, resulting in another death. At this point, I think I'm just running on reserves as I'm making a lot of stupid mistakes at this point in the game. That said, next time I actually put some thought into it and beat the Tiger Guards rather easily, And now that I'm thinking about it, the only reason we came here is to get access into the sewers so that we can reach the room with the elevator that will take us up to Wonder Tower, where Strange is. But what I don't get is we were literally in this part of the sewers less than 3 hours ago, both in real time and game time. So can I not just go back the way I went before? This is a genuine question, by the way. If anyone knows why you can't go back the normal way, please let me know in the comments. I am actually curious. Okay, back to the game. Like I said, we are in the same sewer area as last time, and just like before, we have to do another stealth section. Seeing how though we are now against tiger guards as opposed to normal thugs, it's harder.
On me!
Each modeled after. Move into the final stage of protocol.
A lot harder. Thankfully, I realised that while Strange is giving his speech, he won't stop to inform his men if you've taken any of them out, so I just made sure to find a route that let me take out the most possible guards before his speech was finished, and then just used my disruptor to disable the guns of the last guards and quickly dealt with them. At the top of the elevator, there are 2 guards with assault rifles, 1 with body armour, and 2 with stun sticks. Despite the fact that there are only a few of them, if you don't pay attention you will get hit very quickly. It took me 5 tries to get this fight finished as I kept forgetting about the guns, and that the other guards can obviously still use them if you forget to destroy them. Well, that was actually the last fight with any guards in hand-to-hand combat for the rest of the game, so I at least don't need to worry about my brain melting during a fight anymore. Climbing the tower can be slightly tedious if you don't know exactly where to grapple up to, as I remember my first playthrough 9 years ago. Oh my god, this game came out 9 years ago. Anyway, at the top of Wonder Tower, there is a slightly unique stealth section as you have to take out the tiger guards, but all the while, Strange is in the centre of the room also looking for you, and if he sees you he will alert all the guards to your location, and since he's inside his room, you can't just knock him out like you would any other guard or thug. That being said, it's a rather easy stealth section as there are lots of places to hide in and outside the building, and I'm able to get through it on my first attempt, and now we can finally confront Strange. We beat the ever-living crap out of him, but honestly, we are the least of his worries.
I have achieved what the great Batman could never do. Gotham will forever thank Hugo.
So, with Strange gone, Ra's decides to kill himself, and now we have to go find Joker so we can save Talia and in turn finish the game. I distinctly remember the process of getting to Joker being a lot more difficult with the snipers outside guarding the theatre. Although in a weird twist, it's actually easier to deal with this section without detective mode, as while it lets you see individual thugs, what you actually need to see here is their laser sights, as you need to make sure you pick them off when they are not being covered by another sniper. It's actually quite genius to have the last stealth section have you not used the thing that you've probably been relying on for the majority of the game. I also make sure to save the 2 charges of my disruptor for the 2 thugs at the front door, so I can quickly jump down and take them out without having to worry about being added to someone's quickscope montage. And now, this is the final fight with Clayface. And boy, if you thought the fight in the steel mill was bad, then you haven't seen nothing yet. Clayface was by far the most aggravating part of this whole challenge. A large part of that may honestly be due to the fact that I know he is literally the last thing I have to get past before this is all over. That said, he has a few attacks that are pretty easy to evade in all honesty, like when he tries to punch you it's as simple as just pressing the counter button. The 2 attacks that were by far the hardest to deal with is when he spins around and fires parts of himself towards you, as sometimes he will fire them close to the ground and you'll have to evade, and other times he'll be thrown higher up and you need to duck, which if I was mid-roll wouldn't be able to react to and would get hit. But by far the most annoying move was this one where he uses his hands as hammers and does 1 close attack followed by a long range attack. For the absolute life of me, I could not avoid this move, as maybe it's just me, but it seemed like the hitboxes were bigger than they should have been here. In fact, the only way I was able to get through his first 2 phases was because I got lucky, and on those attempts where I beat him, he didn't use the hammer attack. The 3rd phase isn't too difficult, all things considered. That said, I did reset at one point, and for some reason ended up sending me back to the top of the theatre, where the first 2 phases of the fight took place, except now the floor was missing, and as much as I tried to move, Batman would kind of just twitch in place. Thankfully, it all went back to normal once I reset the fight again. One day, I will have one of these runs where the game doesn't decide to glitch out and break in some shape or form. All things considered, I did die here multiple times, but you can easily get past it if you just carefully pick off the little Clayfaces one by one, and then make sure to avoid his spit once they're all gone, and then just do that 3 times, and the fight is finally finished after dying to this boss a grand total of 30 times. And with Clayface defeated, Joker dead, and Batman reunited with his favourite tobacco enthusiast, the game is over and I did not beat Batman Arkham City without taking any damage. Well, if it wasn't obvious, this was, for a lack of a better way to put it, soul-crushing in many, many instances. Especially after all the points where I was forced to take damage, but as I said, you guys all really seem to love the Arkham Asylum video, so I wanted to go ahead with City regardless of the struggles. I will get the Origins and Night at some point in the near future though, so I hope you look forward to those videos. Origins will be very interesting as I haven't played through it since my original playthrough all the way back in 2013. Regardless, that's going to be the end of this challenge video. If you enjoyed what you saw, consider giving the video a like, and if you're interested in more challenges in the future, feel free to subscribe as I try to have one of these videos out every week. My name's Nerbit, stay safe everyone, and I'll see you all in the next video.